Before we kick off this episode, we want to share some exciting news out of CAES. Our annual publication, Almanac, is now available online at almanac.caes.uga.edu. Check it out today. Welcome to Cultivating Curiosity, where we get down and dirty with the experts on all the ways science and agriculture touch our lives, from what we eat to how we live. I'm Jordan Powers.
And I'm Emily Cabrera. We're from the University of Georgia's College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences.
Emily and I had a chance to visit the J. Phil Campbell Sr. Research and Education Center in Watkinsville, Georgia, where we spoke with Eric Elsner, superintendent of the center. One of the core missions of CAES is to seek, verify, and apply knowledge related to agriculture and the environment, and to disseminate this knowledge through student education and public outreach programs. The Research and Education Centers, or RECs, play an integral role in providing faculty and students with the opportunity to conduct experiments across a wide range of production systems, soil types, and climates. The college has 8 off-campus rec facilities located throughout the state, including the 1,700-acre J. Phil Campbell Senior Rec. Now on to the show. So thanks so much for having us out to the center today, Eric. We really appreciate it. As we kick off, can you tell us about the function of a research and education center and its role in supporting the college's 3 missions of research, education, and extension, and addressing local production concerns?
You bet. I'll be glad to. Thank you guys for coming out, for having me on the show. Been looking forward to it. You know, my staff spend their whole day actively supporting research projects from the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. They're strategically located around the state, in part to address local concerns, right? The Limestone Valley has different challenges than Attapulgis, Georgia has, and so we're there in both of those places. Georgia Mountain in Blairsville clearly has different challenges than some of the other places have, so we're in those strategic locations to address those local concerns. Extension, with respect to JPC, that's an easy one too. We house the Oconee County Extension Service in our building, so when you guys came in this afternoon, you walked through the extension office and down here. Around the state, extension agents, extension specialists, we work with them closely to support their demonstration projects. They work with us to support our field days, to transfer knowledge that's being gained on the station out into the public, right? So we work hand in hand with extension agents and specialists on a daily basis, and we rely on that network of extension agents. They have their finger on the pulse of the communities, the ag industry there, and so that's what we rely on as our sort of litmus test for how's ag going, what are the emerging problems.
UGA Cooperative Extension encompasses 3 main program areas: agriculture and natural resources, family and consumer sciences, and 4-H. County offices are the home base for these agents, who serve their communities as an extension of the University of Georgia. Agents work directly with residents and tend to have a broader scope of information, addressing a variety of topics within their subject area, whereas extension specialists are faculty members or researchers based at the university who focus on developing expertise in specific topics. Specialists support agents with complex questions and help solve local challenges through targeted research. While agents work directly with the community to deliver hands-on education, specialists support those efforts through focused expertise and research. Together, they create a valuable network that helps translate university knowledge into real-world solutions. An extra note for our Georgia listeners: we'll include a link in the show notes on how to find your county extension agent.
Teaching is another easy one for JPC. We're so close to main campus here in Athens that we get a lot of traffic from college-level academic classes. We're a place for an outdoor lab. Beyond that, most research and education centers work hand-in-hand again through their extension agents in the local counties supporting 4-H programming. You work with your local schools and you're supporting FFA programming. We all have some iteration of a third grade ag day, or, kids come out, touch a tractor, all the way up through high school and even adult programming, a lot of times hand in hand with extension, again, master gardener programs, those sorts of things. If the college can dream it up, right, as an outreach or an educational program, then a lot of times a research and education center is the place where it's happening.
It's really cool to see an environment where there is that combination of so much local input and local participation, but then it's also this statewide network, right, where you're able to, maybe even if the concerns aren't the same, work with your colleagues across the racks on a broader scale. So it's really cool to see something that is both so local and statewide.
Yeah, statewide variety testing. They're growing the same varieties of corn in Attapulgos that they're growing in Blairsville.
Wow.
The huge difference in climate between those two locations. And so the farmers in Blairsville are getting literally the same information that the farmers in Attapulgos are getting, but it's tailored to their growing environment. And so the guy in Attapulgos or the gal's probably picking a different variety of corn than the person in Blairsville is. And we talk about, right, extension being the technology transfer arm of that process, the land grant process, right, the county delivery system. We're finding the answers on the Research and Education Center, and that's also the place in a lot of instances where the technology is being transferred to the public.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, so with all of these different research projects throughout the centers, your role as a superintendent, what does the day-to-day look like for you? What is your role as superintendent?
Which day? My job as the superintendent is first and foremost to make sure that I create an environment where a scientist has the opportunity to conduct successful research. I can't conduct that research for him. I can't make them successful, but I can create an environment where they have the opportunity to be successful. That means a lot of different things. Late winter or early spring, I'm working really closely with faculty to get an understanding of what they need to do this year. A lot of that in the spring as they're going into planting season. Through the growing season, we provide a lot of the management of the crops that are growing or the cattle that are subjects of the research. And so I engage with my staff. I have some folks that are primarily responsible for my small plot research at our West unit. I have a farm manager who has the primary responsibility for our cattle herd. I have a farm manager at the Iron Horse Farm who's responsible for overseeing those operations. And so I'm in close contact with those folks, right? Just like that local extension agent's taking pulses, I'm taking pulses too. I'm not a micromanager. I'm empowering you to do your job. Come see me if you need me. Otherwise, you're better at it than I am. Go do it, right? I'm managing. Okay. We're a working farm, livestock too, so we don't have an off season. If we were strictly row crop, then we'd be winding down right now, harvest, and then put everything in the shop and start working on things that broke. With livestock, Christmas Day, somebody's here, right? New Year's Day, somebody's here. We never stop coming to work. 365 days a year, I have somebody here in Watkinsville.
Wow.
That is a big lift indeed. So you just mentioned a couple components of this, of different research plots and Iron Horse, etc. How many projects are happening at the center at any given time?
This year, we have about 65 individual research projects, and those are spread between here and Iron Horse. It's not uncommon for us to encompass all but maybe one or two of the academic departments in the college, and it's the same this year. We span entomology, crop and soils, plant pathology, ag econ, animal and dairy science, horticulture. We're supporting research projects from all of those schools, along with a few from the Franklin College too. The geology folks are out here from time to time. Plant bio folks are out here as well.
Part of the reason we came out to JPC to record today instead of the studio is because, in addition to helping manage all the faculty-led research projects Eric just mentioned, he and his team also work year-round to produce commodity crops like cotton.
Right, so they manage all aspects of production, from field prep and planting through harvest, just like cotton producers around the state. Sales from cotton grown at UGA research and education centers cover operational costs for equipment, crop inputs, and other necessary production-related materials.
And today, we had the opportunity to watch a cotton module builder in action. Okay, so Eric, we are out here in the field. I I'm going to admit I don't fully know what I'm looking at, but I see a tractor. I see a whole lot of cotton, and it looks like it's compacting it down. Can you tell us what's actually happening out here?
Sure, that's a module builder that you're looking at, and we use it when we're harvesting cotton. So when we run a cotton picker over the crop, the picker obviously collects the cotton, but it's loose. Cotton by definition or nature is really fluffy, and so in order to efficiently store the cotton, we pack it into what's called a module. It's a little bit of an older technology. Modern cotton pickers are making their own round module that you see when you travel through southern part of the state. This is an older technology that we're using a module builder, and either our cotton picker or our bowl buggy will pull up to this module builder and actually dump all of the cotton that we just harvested into the module builder. And then we have a gentleman on top of the module builder operating some hydraulic cylinders and a big press that is just almost constantly packing that cotton, probably down to 3 or 4 times less volume than it would take if we just dumped it without packing it.
So how do you measure how much cotton is there? Is that in pounds, or how is that? I don't even know how to explain how much cotton I'm looking at.
Okay, so cotton is sold and marketed by the bale, and for all intents and purposes, a bale of cotton is 500 pounds. And in this module that we're looking right here with the yellow tarp on it, I can't give you an exact number. You'll never know an exact number until it's ginned, but I'm going to tell you that there's probably 12 to 14 bales of cotton inside that module.
Wow, that's a lot of cotton.
It is a lot of cotton.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
We'll put a link in the show notes so you can watch the module builder in action. And now let's get back to the interview.
Can you tell us about a research project or two that you might be particularly excited about this year? I don't want to get anybody feeling bad if you don't talk about their projects.
I love them all. Right? They're all my favorite.
That's the diplomatic answer.
I've always kind of had a soft spot for genetics, the ability of our scientists in the college to literally go back in time to ancient times and cherry pick genes that will help us today. I'm easily impressed maybe, but they're literally able to reach back in time 10,000 years, grab a gene that we need today and put it in a plant that can help a farmer today. That is incredible to me. Also, this is our first year. Dr. Donglin Zhang from horticulture has his first hops yard out at our West unit. I think there's a hops yard now at the Durham Horticultural Farm, and there are plans for a hops yard at the Georgia Mountain Research and Education Center too. So we've started a breeding program he has to try to identify some lines of hops that will produce in the Southeast, right there, Pacific Northwest usually. So we're trying to find some stuff that works down here and maybe involve some of the local brewing companies, that sort of thing, generate some interest there in some Georgia grown hops.
Well, speaking of Georgia grown, you're a Georgia boy.
I'm Georgia grown.
You're Georgia grown. And we learned that you grew up here in Oconee County. And knowing that farming tends to be a family endeavor, that not only did you grow up in Oconee, but your family had a farm and your father was also a UGA faculty member. So how did this combination influence your educational and career trajectory?
Gosh, we could talk about this, whichever rabbit hole you guys want to go down
Let's
for
go
the
down
next
both.
30 minutes, then we can talk about it for a while. So my dad was faculty at that time it was the agronomy department. He was the weed scientist when my sister and I were born, and transitioned from that into the state soybean specialist in the 70s, and then transitioned from that to state of Georgia Seed Development Commission. So when I was a young child, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, I literally grew up riding a rolling chair around the 3rd floor of the Miller Plant Sciences building and the 4th floor. Okay?
Wow.
And so names like Kim Tan and Roger Borma and Harold Brown and some of those giants, at least in my mind, giants of the agronomy department, those folks, they're part of the fabric of my life. And so, I mean, what did Eddie Van Halen's son do, right? He's playing the guitar. So what do you think Earl Elsner's son going to do? He's going to, kind of that sort of thing, just sort of follow in footsteps. So it was just a natural progression to me. In 1980, I'll date myself, in 1988, my dad, because he was an academic, put a lot of emphasis on, when I went to college, he wanted me to go to a place where there was a lot of knowledge stored. In 1988, you needed a library for that. And so the fact that the University of Georgia had the library system that it has made that the obvious choice. And he was, I could have done whatever I wanted to do, but it was pretty, he's probably going to hear this, so I'm looking for the right words. It was encouraged, I think, probably to go to the University of Georgia. And so that's what I did. I love the smell of fresh turned earth, and I just grew up around it, and it's part of who I am.
That is so wholesome.
University of Georgia, too, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that you also worked at this exact center as a student. Does that experience continue to inform you in your role now as a superintendent?
100%. For reasons that you may not realize. And I'm going to try to find a really good way to say this too. I always had a really good work ethic, and my dad was a known quantity to the people that worked at this station. He was a known quantity to faculty that worked on campus. And so that prior existing relationship cracked doors open for me. But it was my responsibility to stay in the room. Mm-hmm. Right? It opened doors, but once I got in the room, it's my responsibility to stay there. I always had a good work ethic. Outside of work, sometimes, let us say, I would make less than ideal decisions for my late teen and early 20s years.
Didn't we all?
No shame.
And so, in spite of that, I always showed up and I always got after it when I was at work. I didn't really know what specific direction I wanted to go in. I just showed up to work and built fence, and I did it good and I did it hard. But I didn't really know whether I wanted to be president or a rock star or a superintendent, right? So I'm just trying to figure all that out and making some bad decisions in that process. But the people that I worked for saw something in me that I didn't see. I didn't know was there yet. I won't call names, but there's some significant people in my life that did. And so all of that to say, it turns out I'm not the only person that had some of those challenges. And when I hire student workers, sometimes I'll hire student workers that already have it all figured out. Life just goes click, 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 click. And that's great, But I also hire some student workers who remind me a lot of me, still trying to figure it out. And if you work for Eric and you show up to work and get after it, you can screw up a little bit. That's fine, because I see something and, I kind of pay that forward. Mm-hmm. You get a shot to figure it out. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I feel like it's safe to say we need more people in the world that operate that way of creating a safe space to grow. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally, we're growing things in the ground, but for our students to grow into who they're going to become. That's exciting.
Yep, 100%.
And learning from mistakes. Mistakes were made, you said. And I'm sure those were some of the biggest learning opportunities for yourself.
And some of the best times.
That took a turn you weren't expecting.
Sorry, Dad.
So what do students gain from having these opportunities to participate in research projects at RECs?
They're introduced to a lot of things. It's up to them to decide what they absorb and what they do with it, right? So first and foremost, you're introduced to a working farm if you've never been introduced to one before, and what that means. That means 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, cold, hot, wet, rainy, whatever. You got things that have to happen. There are things out there that are alive that are relying on you, right? Pretty straightforward. You're introduced to the scientific method. Why do I have to treat this one the same way that I treated that one? I'm tired now. Can I do this half as good as I did the one before? No. You're introduced to the scientific method and what that means, and to some really critical thinkers. You're introduced to some people that are some ultra-high achievers, and they expect things to be done a certain way, and they expect them to be done right now, and they expect them to be done right. And so you can be exposed to the consequences of not living up to people's expectations or not doing the job that you're getting paid to do. Learning experiences.
I feel like we could talk all afternoon. I mean, the stories that you have and the research that's happening here, we could talk for hours, but we also want to be sensitive of time because we know the work never stops. Is there anything that we've missed?
One of my priorities here, I have to tell a bit of a story to get to it, so indulge me. This facility has been in continuous operation since 1937 and has been one of the pieces of fabric of this community ever since then. I was working here as a student worker on 9/11. I can tell you where I was when that happened. Within 2 days of 9/11, the federal government had literally put gates up and closed them around the building that we're sitting in right now to prevent access. And I understand why they did that. That coincided, at least in Oconee County, with a time of rapid growth of the population here. And so this facility went from being a part of the fabric of the community almost overnight to becoming an odd collection of buildings on the hill, and nobody knew what happened there. So I have a picture in my office of the old house that was here, the manager's house, and there's a sign in front of it that says visitors welcome. And so one of my goals when I took this job in 2012 was to try to push this facility back into the community and sort of reintegrate it into the community. That's why we have the corn boil. That's why I think it's important to have the extension office here, because there's constant traffic of the community onto this site and into that extension office. And so if there's a legacy that Eric leaves that's favorable, I hope that we've taken this facility over time back into the community from being an odd collection of buildings on the hill.
Absolutely. It's such an important part of the community. And we'll also make sure that we link the website for JPC and for the extension office in the show notes so that folks out in the public can figure out how to get involved, whether it is just stopping by the extension office, or I can personally say I've come to the Corn Boil and it is phenomenal.
Yep.
So we'll put that out there so that folks can keep an eye on those calendars and come on out whenever they need to.
Super.
Well, Eric, thank you. It is always wonderful to get to come out and spend some time with you, whether we're with a touring African delegation or whether we're here today, just sitting here, the three of us having a conversation. So it is always a wonderful time. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to have us out today.
100% my pleasure. You guys are welcome back anytime.
We'll take you up on that.
Thanks for listening to Cultivating Curiosity, a podcast produced by the UGA College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. A special thanks to Mason McClintock for our music and sound effects. Find more episodes wherever you get your podcasts.